The more I watch the violence that's being perpetrated on American citizens by this rotten man in the White House, the more I understand how I have not internalized the idea of nonviolence. I've read about it. To a certain degree, I've studied it, the tactics, the techniques, the objectives, the goals, the moral imperative that is the center of nonviolence. And I can't get it. And in the past couple of weeks, I've become acutely aware of that. That the philosophy espoused by so many people, historical figures, that I respect and admire, is something that just seems beyond my ability to grab. The past couple of podcasts, I have mentioned freely and openly, I don't give a damn who hears this, but the fact that a response other than nonviolence is probably going to be needed to stop this monster in the White House. And I can't seem to get past that. I continue to try, and I continue to look at these people who I've identified as personal heroes, and I know a hero ain't nothing but a sandwich. That's generally true, but there are exceptions. And I think Gandhi and King and C.T. Vivian and John Lewis and Jesus of Nazareth, and I could go on and on, are representatives of the best that a human being can offer where it concerns fighting tyranny in a way that can't be defeated ultimately, which seems diametrically opposed to what I've said over the years, and especially over the past few podcasts. But when I talk like that, you have to understand something, if you give a damn. I'm just talking today, folks. I'm not advocating. If you don't want to hear this blather, I understand. But I'm talking about my own personal struggle where it concerns violence versus nonviolence in the political realm. I grew up in violence. No matter where I looked, that's all I saw. I put in the book Colored Ice Cream, that you should have a copy by now and probably don't. But I put in that book when I was a kid, when I was 10 years old. And I delivered morning papers in Toledo. And I got in the habit of reading the paper, certainly the front page, as I sat on the front porch of the house where our attic apartment was, and folded these papers to take them to deliver to my customers. So at a very young age, I started reading about violence and death and destruction. And it really, I don't know what it did to me, but it certainly showed me what was going on in the world. So that was just the opening salvo. I had uncles who were in World War II. I had friends who were in and Korea. I had friends who were in Vietnam. I watched as the United States invaded Central America, invaded the Dominican Republic, tried to overthrow a government in Cuba. Just on and on and on. Violence. I watched group after group just being beat into bloody masses to make way for U.S. imperialism or racist hatred. And I guess because of that, not an excuse, it's a reason. Because of that, it's so difficult for me, I don't know about you, maybe you struggle with the same thing, but it's so difficult for me to internalize the idea of nonviolence. I want to, very badly, or goodly, but it's difficult. And up to this point for me, it's been just, impossible. If you're a regular listener to this program over the years, you've heard me. You've heard my screaming and retching and yelling and pounding the desk and screwing up the podcast because I was so furious about the leadership of this country. Democrat and Republican, in certain instances Democratic too, who have just persisted, and religious bullshit from these horrible, horrible, stinking so-called Christians. And the Jews in Israel, what they've done to the Palestinians. I mean, just on and on and on. You've heard me go berserk about this stuff. I don't see a change in the future for me. I really don't. I'm too old for it. I know that might be kind of a shitty excuse, but that's pretty much how I feel. I wish I could. I wish I could look at what's going on in Portland and what's been threatened for other cities and say, okay, let's use the Gandhian or Dr. King or C.T. Vivian or John Lewis or Jesus of Nazareth. Let's use their tactics. And I can say those words, and coming back after this break, I probably will get into that. But it's hard for me to believe it. It's just hard to really put the weight of my belief behind those words. It's difficult because I want to strike back when I see what's happening.
Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.